Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Political Ray, where we are live every Monday through Friday, 7:30 Eastern Time, just ahead of the Rumble lineup. Appreciate everybody being here. You can also follow me on X at The Political Ray, also on True Social at Political Ray. But we've got some stories happening. We've got Alcatraz is the main story happening on everybody's social feed, what have you. Trump saying that he's going to reopen Alcatraz to house the worst criminals within the United States. Maybe illegals, but I still say we should just deport them. That's my opinion. We've also got Jen Psaki news story that I tried to get to yesterday, but with the Meet the Press interview that Trump was on, took pretty much the whole hour and then some. So we'll get into that a little bit because I didn't get to it yesterday. That as well as Jasmine Crockett hitting back at President Trump over his low IQ comment that he made about her during that said interview on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. And let's see, we've also got news about maybe a Kamala 2028 run. I don't see it happening, but we'll talk about it a little bit. First, we're just going to go ahead and we'll get into the Alcatraz thing now. A lot of people may be surprised by my opinion on this, but I think it's a bad idea. This place was open from 1934, I believe, all the way up to 1963. The cost to maintain this place, in my opinion, isn't worth it. Trump is saving all kinds of money, taxpayer dollars, by doing a bunch of different stuff with Doge and everything else. I don't think that putting a bunch of money into reopening Alcatraz is a good idea. And also it's part of the Parks Service, and it generates quite a good amount of money. So I don't see the point in just taking it away from the Park Services and reopening it. It costs too much. You have to literally the waste from the human waste has to be taken off by a barge. The food has to come in by barge. The water has to come in by barge. Now, back in the day, when this place closed, it roughly cost about $10, $10.50 to house each inmate at that prison. Now, notably, some of the worst people there, said like Al Capone, was housed at this prison. It was for the worst of the worst, that kind of thing. And I understand it. But I just don't get the cost efficiency of reopening it. Because you think about this with the rate of inflation from 1963, $10.50 per inmate, up to 2025 now, that's roughly about $105, give or take, given inflation. It's a lot of money per inmate, $105 per inmate. That's just the cost for every single inmate. I don't think it's a good idea. Plus, it's going to cost. They say it costs anywhere from $150 million up to $500 million just to renovate the place in order to house criminals there once again. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's a good idea. But President Trump does think it's a good idea. He wants it to serve as a deterrent, and I can understand the reasoning behind it, but I'm not a fan of it. I don't agree with it. You can let me know what you think, but we'll take a look at this. This is from his Truth Social. Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anybody they could harm. Again, I will say I understand the reasoning behind it. I just don't agree with the cost of maintaining and housing and everything else as far as this prison goes. I understand the deterrent. I understand that it's away from society. It's almost nearly impossible to escape from. I understand the appeal, the attraction to it. I get it. As far as the cost, look, he's cutting all kinds of things within the federal government, saving taxpayer dollars. But this is not saving any money. I disagree with this. But you can let me know what you think. Maybe a lot of people think, well, we've saved all this money. Why not spend a little bit of it in order to keep the worst of the worst outside and far away from civilization as possible. I can understand both sides of it. Me myself, like I said, I don't think it's a good thing, but it's just not cost efficient to me. Anyway, that's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem in our streets. That is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen and substantially enlarge and rebuild Alcatraz. To house America's most ruthless and violent offenders, we will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges that are afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. To reopen Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law and order and justice. We will make America great again. Okay. Like I said, you let me know what you think. I don't think it's a good idea. But, I mean, like I said, anywhere from, it was like $10.50. Again, back in the day when this place closed up. Now, with inflation, that's roughly about $105 per inmate. And again, like I said, you have to import. I say import because taking on barges, you have to bring in the food, the water, because they can't use the salt water. Food, water, I'm sure that the guards there would be paid pretty well for being out there on the island because of the fact that it would house the worst of the worst. I just don't think it's cost efficient. That's just my opinion. Again, you let me know what you think. I think that this place can stay closed. It brings in a lot of revenue for the Park Service. So you won't hear me agree with the Democrats a whole lot, but on this one, I just don't think it's cost efficient. Now, we may differ on the reasons as why we think it shouldn't be reopened, but that's just what I think. Again, you can let me know what you think. But anyway, so we'll move on to the tariffs on Hollywood. Now, President Trump has said that he's going to inflict 100% tariff on importing movies. Now, I believe that this has to do with the fact that in a lot of cases, these movies are being made overseas. Now, a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the scenery, certain movies have to be made in certain places, what have you. I get that. But a lot of these movies, they're going overseas to make during the production because it's cheaper to do so. And I get that too. They want to save money. They want to make money. That's what the movie industry is. It's to make money. But I also, look, America hasn't had an original movie idea in quite some time. There's a lot of horror movies out there that are coming up. A lot of them are just rehashes. Look at the action movies. Look at everything, as far as like Disney's The Avengers, the MCU, that kind of stuff. It's all rehashes. They tried to go in a different direction. They saw that it wasn't working, and now they brought back, Robert Downey Jr. to play Dr. Doom because they saw that everything else was failing. They got to bring back Robert Downey Jr. because he was the guy that made the money for those movies. He's a good actor. He's the one that brought in the fans and the money. So they brought this guy back because what they were doing before wasn't working. But anyway, so as far as taking the movies outside of the U.S., a lot of the places that they're going to, like I said, it's just cheaper for them to even with the flights going overseas, the cost to make it overseas, it's actually cheaper for them to do it in a foreign land. Places like a lot of them are doing it in Canada, pretty close. They got a lot of good scenery up there, so they do it in Canada, New Zealand, the UK, because the production cost is a lot cheaper, even when you take into factor having the whole production team flown over there, drove up there, what have you. It's just, and their labor unions are a lot more lax than ours. So the labor unions actually put into place they bartered better terms for people making movies inside the U.S., particularly in California, where Hollywood is. That's why you see a lot of the movie productions companies they're filming in Georgia and New Mexico as well, because L.A. and California is just too expensive for them, and they don't want to pay. They're in the business of making money. They make entertainment for people, and they make money. That's their whole thing. But anyway, so we'll take a look at this. This is another post on True Social from President Trump. The movie industry in America is dying. I would have to agree, but for different reasons. Like I said, they just don't have any more original ideas. For some reason, they keep rehashing old movies. They don't, and then they just butcher it by making it woke. But I digress. I'm not going to ramble about that. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Particularly like what I just said, it's the cost effectiveness is just so much cheaper for these production companies to film overseas and then just bring it back to the US market. Anyway, Hollywood and many other areas within the USA are being devastated. This is a concentrated effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda. Therefore, I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that were produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. Understand completely, but a lot of this, like I said, a lot of it has to do with the unions that were able to barter better prices for people that are working in this industry. So you got them to thank for that too. I mean, you let me know what you think. I think that excuse me. I understand being you take a movie like I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe a little bit older, but Braveheart wasn't set in the United States. It was set overseas. So, I understand that movie actually being made in said country. I understand it. I get it. But at the same time, when you've got movies like, Captain America, the MCU stuffs, all these other movies that can be made here in the United States and they're not, just for production costs, I get it. He wants this stuff, and that's what the tariffs do. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The tariffs are in place to bring back American jobs. That's what they're there for. You can have your opinion about it. You let me know, but that's my opinion on it. I'm fine with this one, I guess. It doesn't bother me much. I mean, I'm not in that industry, so I don't really care. I'll be honest with you. I don't care. It's fine. If he wants to put a tariff on the movies, I don't really watch a whole lot of movies anymore just because nobody makes anything good anymore. Most of it that's coming out is crap. And a lot of it's just rehashed. Look at what Disney's doing. They can't come up with another original idea, so they just keep rehashing. They're remaking every single animated movie they had into a live action and just making it a woke piece of crap. I mean, look what happened with Snow White. It's a prime example. That movie bombed because they can't come up with an original idea. They rehash everything else and make it woke, and then nobody wants to see it. So that's on them. I don't care. Whatever. They can have their woke stuff, and they can have their tanking movies, and I wouldn't be sad if the whole company filed Chapter 11. I'll be honest. It doesn't bother me one single bit. But anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to Jen Psaki. Now, everybody remembers this from this woman she is the Circle Back Girl, former White House press secretary, who, whenever she was asked a difficult question, just said, we'll circle back to that, and then was never addressed. But I digress. This one is interesting to me. She's claiming that this is from the Post Millennial. Former White House press secretary Jen Psaki claims there was no cover-up of Biden's mental decline. Everybody knows that there was. Now, she's saying that until the debate between him and President Trump, nobody thought that there was any kind of mental decline. She never saw that person. I tend to believe that she's lying about this. You had, Jake Tapper brought that book out. What was it called? Original Sin? Stupid name, by the way. But I digress. That claimed, that President Biden there was a cover-up and about his mental decline. Everybody knew it. except for the people who just refuse to believe it. But, you got that too. But anyway, old Jen Psaki. Let's see what she says. Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, who is now an MSNBC pundit, claimed on a podcast with Semaphore that she had no idea President Joe Biden was suffering from a mental decline in his advanced age, and that there had been no cover-up. I tend to disagree. Everybody saw that the guy was not there. You had him on stage trying to shake hands with nobody that was there. He had just incoherent, rambling speeches that he did. The guy everybody saw that he was on the downfall. And I say shame on his wife for putting him through that. Because she said the same thing. Oh, he's sharp as a tack and blah, blah, blah. Shame on his wife for putting him through that, knowing his condition. But that's just how I feel about it. Excuse me. I left in May of 2022 just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. So I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, she said, referencing to June 27 of 24 debate between Biden and President Trump, in which Biden's severely declined mental capacity became apparent to everyone watching. Not a single time, and I was in the Oval Office every day that was on the debate stage. Look, everybody saw, even when she was still the press secretary, she was being asked about his mental decline. She said it wasn't a thing. But everybody saw it. Everybody knows. And like I said, you've got Jake Tapper look, Jake Tapper was one of the ones that was like, oh, there's no mental decline. There's no cover up, blah, blah, blah. Now he brought out a book saying that there was. Talk about jumping on the bandwagon. But anyway, let's take a look at the clip on when she was on this little podcast, and we'll see what she says. Take a look.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial,
Yes.
or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're
It's
pretending
very
otherwise,
direct.
versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? When people use that term.
They say it's
and
worse
phrase,
than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to
Yeah.
Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
I don't think that it was. I don't think any of that. I think she's a liar. And I think she did know about it. I think everybody knew about it. I think that Biden was pretty much just a face. He was a puppet. He was there. He was thrown out there. They told him, look, don't stray from the teleprompter. Everybody saw that. He straight out said, trying to leave the podium several times. I can't take any more questions. They're going to get mad at me. The guy was just a face. He was in mental decline, and again, I will say shame on his wife for putting him in that position. But anyway, so do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? It was a bad debate, but it was because of his mental decline. And that's when everybody that's when the mainstream media actually was like, look, this guy's not there. That's when they finally came out and said it, even though that they had been covering up for the last 4 years that he was in office. Okay. There's no doubt in my mind that he may not have been to the point where he was in that debate. He was pretty far off. But that's not to say, look, he may have had moments where he was pretty sharp in the first year or so, maybe. I don't know. My personal opinion is everybody knew about this. They ran him anyway. And again, shame on his wife. Jill is a terrible person. Knowing that this guy is not, he's on the downslide. His mental acuity is not what it used to be. and he shouldn't have been in office. That's it. Anyway, let's see. I can tell you that there was certainly a lack of transparency from the former president, from the entire former administration, Levitt said during Trump's first 100 days week. And frankly, a lot of people in this room, when it came to the health and the competency of the former president of the United States, Joe Biden, there was one of the greatest cover-ups and, frankly, political scandals this nation have ever seen. It's been unraveled and in some recent books and that are being written by journalists who engaged in that cover-up and scandal, which is quite ironic. That's just what I pointed out. Jake Tapper's book, stupid name, by the way. The guy was actively covering this up for the mainstream media. Now he's got a book out saying, "Oh yes, it was a cover-up." You partook of the cover-up. You were actively covering it up. But now he's got a book out trying to make some money. It's ridiculous. By June 21, calls for Biden to be tested by dementia began. Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson demanded that Biden have a cognitive test to rule out dementia. He's not physically or cognitively fit to be our president right now, Jackson told Sean Hannity. In October 21, Jen Psaki was asked by a reporter in the press briefing room about Biden's exercise regimen and said that he was so spryly that she had trouble keeping up with him. I doubt that very much. I think that's a lie. I think she's a liar, but I can tell you, having traveled with him for a fair amount, sometimes he's hard to keep up with, she said at the time. Throughout Biden's administration, reporters asked for him to give a press conference to answer questions. Psaki claimed that Biden was providing transparency, but he was accused of being dishonest. By the end of Biden's first 100 days, reporters were demanding access to the president, and it was not given. That's because they did not want him to say anything. You can go back to any presser, anything that he had. He was on the teleprompter, and every time he got asked a question by any of the media, he said, "I'm sorry, I got to go. I can't talk to you because they'll get mad at me." He was not allowed to talk to the press. The few times that he actually went off script and did, he looked like a buffoon. Again, this guy, I feel bad for the guy. His wife should have never let this guy run for president, but that's just my opinion. Let's see. October 21, Psaki was being, I think I read that part. No, maybe I didn't. Reportedly about Biden's health and promised that he would undergo a physical and release the results to the public. That resounding slew of questions came after Biden approved to be suffering from respiratory distress during a speech. A poll at the time found that 48% of Americans disagreed with the statement Joe Biden is mentally fit. That's because it was a giant cover-up. Everybody knows it at this point, but she still wants to run with the fact that it wasn't happening. I'm sure that Jake Tapper's not the only one. He's just the one that I know of that is relevant and was actively covering up this stuff and then decided to make a profit off of making a book. Everybody knows that his decline was relevant. Everybody saw it, but they're still gonna run with the fact that he didn't have any mental decline. I don't buy it. I think Jen Psaki's a liar, but we'll go ahead and move on to the next one because I'll just ramble on for a while if I stay on that. But anyway, now Kamala Harris. There's rumors about swirling around about her trying to make a run for the presidency in 28. I don't think it's going to happen. Let me just say on the outset here, it's not going to happen. She got demolished against President Trump. I don't think that she has a snowball's chance in whatever to make to actually have a shot. I mean, everybody knows. Look, she made a butt ton of money in the 3 months that she was actually running for the presidency after Joe Biden dropped out because of his mental decline, going back to the previous story. But she raised a butt ton of money, millions and millions of dollars. And then she still ended up in debt, $20 million. Now, I see stuff on X all the time about, oh, Kamala, she's got an economics degree. Okay. If she's so good with economics, how did she end up $20 million in debt at the end of her campaign? Why? I think just because she made promises to people and then she couldn't deliver because she didn't get the presidency. That's just my thoughts. You can let me know what you think. But anyway, this story From the Hill. Democrats cautiously open door to another Harris run in 28. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the Democrats don't have anybody. Now, President Trump said in his interview with Meet the Press with Kristen Welker that the Democrats are in disarray. I believe this. They have no front runner. They have no predominant leader of this party. It's in shambles. There's infighting. There's no clear leader. I mean, you've got Adam Shifty, you got Chucky Schumer. Pelosi's nowhere to be found because I'm pretty sure her mental health, or her health, not her mental health, but I think just her health in general is on the downslide. Jasmine Crockett, who is said to be one of the leaders of the party, I think she's a fake, and a lot of people know that. And AOC, I think she's popular in her district in New York. Other than that, as far as like a nationwide thing, she's not popular. I don't think she'd say, just hypothetically, JD Vance and AOC for the presidency in 28. JD Vance wipes the floor with this girl because she's not popular nationwide. She's very popular in her district. I'll give her credit where it's due. Nationwide, she doesn't win an election. It's just, I just don't see it happening. She would get a lot of the votes just because she's a Democrat. But as far as beating JD Vance, it's not going to happen. I don't think that she would win against old DeSantis in Florida, just because even with his little scandal with his stuff going on right now, I don't see it happening. But anyway, we'll get to this story. From the Hill. Democrats cautiously open door for another Harris run in 28. Senate Democrats are skeptical about their former colleague, former Vice President Kamala Harris, making another presidential run in 28 after she lost all 7 battleground states to President Trump in November. I called that. Just not to toot my own horn, but I said a couple months before the election that Trump was going to win all 7 states. I called it, but anyway. But most of them aren't ruling out the possibility that she could clinch the party's nomination if she plays her cards right. I don't think she's gonna overtake the governorship of California. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. I think she stays in California. That's where people like her. They say she was a good AG. I don't see it, but I think she wrongfully kept people in prison for slave labor, cheap labor, what have you. But that's just my thoughts. I don't see her making another presidential run. She doesn't have the backing financially, and I just don't see it happening. But Harris reemerged on the national stage last week at a San Francisco gala by delivering a widely publicized speech on Trump's first 100 days in office, sounding at times like a candidate again, as she slammed him for creating the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. No, that was your administration. But anyway, Harris who is 60, is weighing her future political options and is viewed as a possible contender to run for governor of California in 26 or for the president again in 28. Look, I think she takes that governorship fairly easily. I don't think that there's going to be any issues with that. I don't see her running for president again. I think it's going to be, Jasmine Crockett's making waves. Maybe she throws her name in the hat. There's going to be a lot of Democrats coming out of the woodworks, throwing their name in for the presidency. I have no idea who honestly, if AOC runs, I don't think she will. I think she'll take the Senate seat, but I don't think she'll run. If she does, I think she would be the front runner, maybe her or Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is for sure. I guarantee you, if I'm wrong, you can ostracize me, what have you, but I'm guarantee you, Gavin Newsom is going to run for president in 28. He will be on the Democrat ticket. I think he's going to be the one on the Democrat. He's going to be the head of the ticket. That's what I think. You can admonish me later if I'm wrong, but that's what I think. Anyway, excuse me. The senator said she had her chance. The American people delivered their verdict and she should move on. I agree. Look, the one other time that she ran for president, she got annihilated on the debate stage by Tulsi Gabbard, who was at the time running for president on the Democrat ticket as well. Now, I like Tulsi. I do. Anybody who knows me knows that I like Tulsi quite a bit. I wasn't a fan of her Second Amendment stance. She's since changed her tune, and people can do that. People can change their minds. Happens all the time. But I like Tulsi. I've always liked her. And I'll be honest with you, if Tulsi was the head of that ticket, I I'm not sure that I probably would have voted for her. Maybe I wouldn't have. We would have had to see some more debates, what have you, but I was on the Tulsi team. I like her. But anyway, Senator John Hickenlooper of Democrat, who ran for president in 2020, doesn't necessarily see Harris as a frontrunner, neither do I, even though polls show her leading the pack of potential candidates because of her high name ID. But he said he thinks she could add a valuable perspective to the political debate. I think time will tell, he said when asked whether Harris would be a viable presidential candidate in the next election. I don't see it happening again. I think she will add value to the national conversation. He said what's going to happen over the next 6 to 18 months is going to be lots of Democrats having lots of different opinions about what our priorities should be, what our values we have to put first. I think she will have a valuable perspective on that, he said. Harris's decisive loss to Trump doesn't mean she couldn't put together a winning formula in the 28th general election. I don't think so. I don't. I think she's done. But anyway, let me see here. Now, everybody remembers. Look, this is just one thing I wanted to point out. Just bear with me here. The Kamala Harris campaign ended up $20 million in debt after it was all said and done. After the election was finalized, what have you, $20 million in debt. How does that happen if she's so good? She's got an economics degree. How, if she's so good at economics, how did she end up $20 million in debt? This from Newsweek. It's not like a right-wing pundit thing. This is Newsweek. $20 million in debt. How does it happen? If you're so good at economics, how are you $20 million in debt after the election? Somebody can let me know. I don't think that she's I don't think she's a front runner. I don't think she's good for the country. I don't. I think her whole woke agenda, everything else, I think she's terrible. That's why she lost, in my opinion. I think it all came down to a couple of things. I'm for President Trump's ad when he said that she is for they them, President Trump's for you. I think that was a big one. I think that her in the church when the kids came in there and said, Jesus is king, and she said, I think you're at the wrong rally. That was bad. Look, there's several things when she was on The View, and they asked her what she would do differently if she was the president, and she said nothing comes to mind. Really? Nothing? But I digress. I don't think she's a good candidate. That's just me. Anyway, we'll keep going with the Hills little thing here. Some Democratic lawmakers don't want to slam the door shut on Harris running for the White House in 3 years, especially when they're not sure if a stronger candidate will emerge. That's what I'm saying with the infighting. There's a lot of infighting within the Democratic Party. There's no clear leader of the party, and this is going to make it hard for them come presidential run in 28. I personally, you let me know what you think. I don't think that there's anybody in the Democratic Party that would withstand anybody that, look, the Republicans bench is thick. Okay. We've got all kinds of up and comers. JD Vance, namely. You got Vivek, who's, I don't think he's going to make another run, but I could be wrong. There's just the benches, Marco Rubio is another good candidate. The Republicans have a bench. The Democrats have nothing. I don't see anybody as a front runner. You let me know who you think is going to run. It'd be interesting to see. But anyway, Democrat senators were more vocal about the need to move on after Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 presidential election to Trump. Even though Clinton won the popular vote that year by almost 2.9 million votes, Clinton was 227 electoral votes, while Harris won 226. A little less, but Kamala also did lose the popular vote. But I think a big part of that has to do with the fact that President Trump was campaigning in California, in New York, these places, these states that he knew he was going to lose the electoral. And everybody said, why are you campaigning in these? You know you're going to lose these states for the popular vote. Just to make it so that there was nothing because in 2016, when he did not win the popular vote, that's what the Democrats ran off of. Well, he didn't win the popular vote. He's an illegitimate president. Well, this time they got nothing to go on. He won the popular and the electoral, so they couldn't say anything. That's why he was in California and New York and other places where he knew he wasn't going to take the states. But anyway, Senate Democrats whip Dick Durbin, who endorsed the former First Lady in the former First Lady in 2016 race, famously called on his party to move on from Clinton after her loss to Trump. I think it is time for our party to move on to new leadership, a new spokesperson, he said. In 19, former Senator John Tester discouraged Clinton from running again. I don't think that she was going to win, period. But that's just me. Senator Martin Heinrich said it would be a mistake for Clinton to run again in 20 when she would have been 73 years old on Election Day. Heinrich, however, is open to Harris running again, though he says she would likely face a lot of competition. She will. Like I said, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm 90% certain in my own mind that Gavin Newsom's going to be the top of the ticket. He's going to lose horribly to anybody, I think. But I think Newsom's going to be the head of the ticket for the presidency in 28. That's just my thought. I might be wrong. I don't think I am, though. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Kamala Harris. I enjoyed serving with her. I think given the time frame that we have, which is very different from what we were dealing with the last time, it's going to be an open process, he said. Anybody who thinks they've got what it takes to step into that, and someone will emerge as the winner. I think it's going to be Gavin Newsom, but I would never underestimate her talent, he said. Having that open process has a lot of long-term benefits. Democrats who think Harris could be a viable general election candidate again in 28 believe she was handicapped by having only a few weeks to campaign as the party's nominee since former President Biden didn't drop out of the race until July 21st. I don't think that had anything to do with it. Look at the 2020 election. It's a prime example. She was ostracized and she dropped out of the election before the first voting during the generals. That there wasn't a single vote during the primaries that took place before she dropped out. If she runs again, and I don't think she will, it's going to be that all over again. She was the least popular candidate for the Democrats in 20, and she was the first one to drop out before the first primary ever took place. And she was done. She's not going to run again. I don't think so. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but I don't think she's going to do it again. I think it's just anyway. I'm not going to read any more of that because I'm just going to go on a tangent. But anyway, we'll move on to old Jasmine Crockett. Now, Crockett has come back against President Trump. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had it here, but I don't see that I do. Nope. I just got a couple other things with her. But let's see. Let me just bring it up here. Okay. So, Jasmine Crockett. I'll just move that. I got that over there now. So, maybe if that updates. Anyway, so we've got Jasmine Crockett. Trump said in his interview with Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, says, I look at the Democrats, they have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day, and she's definitely a low IQ person. I said this when I covered this interview yesterday. I don't think that she's a low IQ person. I think she's fake, and I think that she's got a lot of issues other than that, but I don't think she's low IQ. I don't think she's dumb. I think she's smart. I think she's fake. Again, she claims to have this ghetto accent, and she's talking to her base. I don't buy it because I've seen how she talked before, and I know her upbringing. She went to a private school, an all girls Catholic school. She went to a very, very expensive college. And she doesn't talk ghetto. I'm just gonna put that out there now. That's not how she talks. It's not who she is. She's fake. Just like the rest of the Democrats, when they're placating to a different audience, they will put on a different accent. You've seen it 100 times. Hillary Clinton did it. Kamala did it. Jasmine Crockett's doing it. This is not who she is. But anyway, Jasmine Crockett, she came back. She said, for you to be in charge of the whole country, you sure do have my name in your mouth a lot. Every time you say my name, you're reminding the world that you're terrified of a smart, bold black woman telling the truth and holding you accountable. So keep talking. This is what she put on X. Now, I think she's fake. I think she's disingenuous, and I don't believe her. Now, I don't believe a single thing that she says, but maybe if she actually talked the way that she was raised, I would believe her, but it's not. But we'll take a look at this. She was talking at a college. She got an honorary doctorate, if I remember correctly. But we'll take a look at this. And again, you let me know what you think of Jasmine Crockett. I think she's fake, and I don't like her. But that's just me. I think she's a grifter. I think she's fake, and she placates to her audience. But that's just my opinion. You let me know.
There are going to be people that tell you that you don't belong, and I am here to tell you over and over and over that you absolutely belong. There are people that are going to tell you that there is not a table in which there is a seat for you, but I am here to remind you of Montgomery and those folding chairs. Let me tell you that we know how to use a chair, whether we pulling it up.
Look, I will say that America does not have the best past. I'll be the first to admit it. We've had a bad past, but we've learned. We've come out of that. We've got, I mean, it used to be when I was growing up, my mother used to say everybody should be colorblind. I believe in that. That's what was said in the early 90s. That's what I think people should be. I think people should be, judged on their character and nothing else. My mama raised me right, but that's just me. I don't think, and until Obama came into office, race relations within the United States were pretty good. I didn't see a lot of this. Now you see it everywhere. I think Obama started it, and the Democrats ran with it, and it's still going to this day. I think if this wasn't an issue that was brought up every single day, I don't think it'd be an issue. But that's just my opinion, and she's fake, and I'll show you why in just a second, because the way she talks is not how she really talks. But anyway, I'll remind everybody of a former clip when she was actually first running for her office. But we'll finish this one first.
Are we doing something else with it? Let me be the first one to tell you that I know that y'all are ready to put your boots on the ground. That's your cue. There we go.
Anyway, so just so everybody has a reminder, I want to put this in here just as a reminder to show everybody that this is who she actually is. She is a very, very educated person. She went to a prestigious all-girls Catholic school, which the tuition for that was not cheap. The tuition for the college that she went to was around $55,000 per year. And that was back in the early 2000s. So you can only imagine what it is now. But this is who Jasmine Crockett actually is. This is going to be a side-by-side. This is how she actually talks. She is a fake person. Take a look at this.
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. You know, no one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress.
Now look, is that how she actually talks? I believe so. Or maybe people say, well, she actually talks like this. She was talking white, as they say, in this interview because she was actually running for office. I don't buy that. I think that this is how she actually talks. She was raised in a very well-off family, and she went to prestigious schools. I think that this is how she actually talks. And I think she's fake now with her ghetto talk, as they call it. This is who she actually is. But here's the comparison.
It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need.
Listen, he up there, he's hearing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. Let me just be real. And we weren't gonna sit for that shit. We wouldn't, you know.
But when she called me and said, I think it's time for me to retire, and you're the one that I believe should take my seat, I really was kind of caught off guard. I didn't anticipate that. If anyone knows anything about the Congresswoman, they know.
We showed up, and if he had some sense, then maybe we would have been about that life. But y'all know he ain't got no sense. So please give some love. This took a little bit of coordinating to do, for sure. We got some cool shirts.
Now, that's all I'm going to play of that. Now, will she make a run for the presidency? I don't know. Maybe she will. She's getting a lot of headway. People are saying that she's actually the leader of the Democratic Party. I don't see that. If anything, I'd say AOC over her, but that's just my opinion. I don't I don't see her being. She's running for some head of something or other. I forget what it actually was. I don't want to misstate it and be wrong on here, but she's not the front runner. If anything, I would say the leader of the Democratic Party at this point is probably AOC. There was that poll that came out that said 10% of Democrats actually see her as the leader of the Democratic Party. That's just what they think, not me. I don't know who the clear leader would be. Honestly, like I said, I think come 2028, Gavin Newsom's going to be the head of the ticket. You can admonish me, ostracize me, whatever you want to do, if I'm wrong on that point. But I think that's the way it's gonna. I think that's what's gonna happen. But you let me know who you think's going to be the presidential candidate for 28 for the Democrats. Because at this point it could be anybody. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. I appreciate you hanging out with me through my ramblings. Give me a follow, share the show with everybody you know. Trying to grow this up and get this a little bit bigger, get my messaging out to people, as it were. But you can also follow me on X at The Political Ray. Also follow me on True Social at Political Ray. You can go if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I'm shadow banned on YouTube. I'm only getting like a few views on every video there now. But if you see this on YouTube, I don't know why you're there. Just go to Rumble. I'm live every single morning, Monday through Friday, 7:30 Eastern time. So appreciate you being here again, and I hope everybody has a fantastic Tuesday. Take care of each other. God bless. Take care.